Quaid Azam, Part 125. They chose instead to leave it well alone. In the communique issued at Delhi on 2 March 1925, Motilal Nehru and Gandhi informed that there was now no likelihood of a settlement, and just 3 days later in Bombay, Gandhi told reporters that he intended to put the Hindu-Muslim problem to one side. After the failure of this conference, the political distance between Motilal Nehru and Jinnah widened. For Motilal Nehru, confronted by the entrenchment criticism of the Hindu Mahasabha, altering his stance became necessary. He now turned more obstructionist in the assembly. Jinnah, on the other hand, despite his sense of disappointment, refusal to lend support to what he considered as the working tactics of the non-cooperation. In the spring 1925, the two for the first time began to disagree publicly. This united front against the central government had finally collapsed, and a side is necessary here: Motilal Nehru and Muhammad Ali Jinnah's social relations. Despite their growing political separation, remained cordial to the very last. Though Jinnah was keen that Modiman report be debated, the government postponed this matter. In the interim, the Viceroy Lord Reading visited England, not to discuss political reforms, rather to devise a formula for staunching nationalist fires. He had viewed the Modiman Committee as merely an expedient, essentially to hold the situation in check, and contrary to Jinnah's expectation, he had been totally unimpressed by Jinnah's policy of rational protest. In 1924, with a Labour government in office and the Nationalists in control of the Assembly, Reading had been strained. In 1925, with Conservationists back in office and Jinnah and Nehru political confrontation, he was strengthened and consequently decided to stand firm. On 7 July 1925, in the House of Lords, Lord Birkenhead put paid to an remaining hopes of immediate reform. Though he did not entirely rule out the possibility of an early statutory commission, he did make it plain that no concessions could be expected until Indian leaders had first cooperated in the working of the reforms. This speech eventually became a turning point for India's politics of confrontation. Until then, Motilal Nehru's leadership and Swaraj's tactics had remained unchallenged, and victory at all India level seemed possible. With this ultimatum, however, both options now stood rejected. Many provincial battalions then withdrew from battle and made overtures to the enemy. Consequently, Motilal Nehru was obliged to cease frontline operations and to take up the task of quelling mutiny in his own ranks instead. To do that effectively, he had to eventually quit the legislature and revert to Gandhi's path of non-cooperation. Jinnah was even more disappointed, for he had lost more. After all, it was principally his policy that had suffered a reverse, and when the Modiman report was finally debated, his patience gave way to a mood of unrestrained exasperation. I again here ask the government, I ask Lord Birkenhead, I ask Lord Reading, what is your answer to those men who have cooperated with you? None. Your answer to me as one who has not non-cooperated with you is this: will you bring a section of politically minded people who happen to be the largest political party? Will you bring them down to their knees? Will you bring Pandit Motilal Nehru to bow before the throne at Viceregal Lodge and say, "Sir, I'm humble, I crawl before you, and will you now graciously be pleased to give me a royal commission?"